Well, happy Thanksgiving, everybody. It is a rarity
Why am
here
I
at Hoops
locked up?
HD, a Thursday morning podcast, Thanksgiving Day. It is our Under the Radar podcast. I'm your
Okay.
host, Chad Sherwood.
Chad, can you let me out?
Thankfully, without video, just a picture of him today, David
Can you
Griggs,
let me out?
because no.
Thankfully, he's behind bars.
And coming into us to us live from Cincinnati, home of the first annual WKRP Turkey Drop, it is John Stalika.
Well, it's like the 45th annual first drop.
As God is my witness, I thought turkeys could fly. Ah, yeah. Um, this is our Under the Radar podcast. Griggs, what the hell does it mean to be under the radar?
There's two definitions. The first one is it means that you're from one of the 22 regular one bid leagues. There's no rule that says those conferences can't get more than one bid. It's just that they typically don't. Some will. We see it every year where an under the radar team plays their way inside the bubble, but it means you're not in the Power Five. So you're not in the Big Ten, Big East, Big 12, Pac 12, or Big ACC, and you're not in one of the other regular multi bid leagues, which is the Big East, the Atlantic 10, albeit barely, the Mountain West, and the American, and the West Coast. Did I miss one?
No, the only other
Okay.
qualifier is that if you're not in the top 25 in either of the major polls, this is the only attention we at Hoops AT give to the AP or the
Right.
coaches poll is for under the radar qualification purposes.
Right. Because if you,
James Madison's still in the top 25. We will not be discussing them tonight. Yep.
yeah,
Otherwise, polls are completely meaningless. Correct?
they are. They're interesting to look at, but they're put together by voters who the coaches watch their own team and the teams they play against, and the writers watch the teams they cover. They spend about 90% of their time covering 5% of the teams, yet they're ranking all of them, and they're oftentimes wrong.
Yes. But we do give them credit for determining under the radar
Right, yeah.
for some reason. We like to go through all 22 of these conferences. I 22 of these conferences, one
22.
independent, a few other things that we hit at the end of the show, but we always like to have a start off with a feature conference. And let me see if I got the right page up here. Let me see if I can figure out how to do the screen share.
It's
Uh,
Thanksgiving. We're all
uh,
hungover. I'm in jail.
oh. Here we go. This is the screen share. We're going to start with our feature conference today. And I thought, why don't we start with the SoCon because of the way the top two teams of this conference have been performing so far. Uh, Salika, let me start off with you here in the Southern Conference, where both Chattanooga and Western Carolina off to really good starts this season.
Western Carolina initially got onto the map with a win at Notre Dame the week before. This week, they get a nice win against McNeese at home against Will Wade's team. And then you look at Chattanooga, who had narrowly won a bye game at Louisville, but they've also followed that up with a win at home against Texas Tech or Tennessee Tech on Sunday.
Yeah, I believe I read this was Chattanooga's first win ever over an ACC team, or maybe first road win over an ACC team. I don't know why they never have a home game against an ACC team, so I assume their first win ever against an ACC team.
Yeah. And
And I would know.
let's not forget,
Will Wade is still not coaching yet at McNeese State. It's his team, but not his. He's not
yeah.
on the bench yet. Go ahead, Griggs.
Well, Western Carolina also with a big win at Middle Tennessee. I would argue that was actually more impressive than the win at Notre Dame, even though Middle doesn't have the brand name. I think they've got the better team. And let's not forget about Greensboro. They won a nice game too this week against a
Let me
team
go back.
called Arkansas.
Yes, Greensboro was the third team there, and that's probably the most impressive win of this conference. Even though, here I'll pull UNC Greensboro up over on the team sheet here on the left. Yeah, they do have that loss at Vanderbilt, which
Yeah.
kind of is a head scratcher. How you lose at Vanderbilt and win at
The
Arkansas,
win
I
in
don't know.
Arkansas, yeah, and I think Vanderbilt has a pulse. I don't think they'll do well in the SEC, but they're one of those teams that's better than probably 200 others. But yeah, still, that is a bit of a head scratcher. How did Greensboro lose at Vandy, but then go to Arkansas and win and looked really good in that win? So
And circle on,
one thing that doesn't look good if you're Greensboro, come on, three non D1s right in a row.
those are not Dundee ones. The two of those are exempt tournament games actually,
Oh,
Greg.
okay, they are.
They would go play the winner of Brown and Delaware. Then they could play that Middle Tennessee team or even Ohio U in the championship game of their event this weekend. I think that is that the Nassau Championship maybe or the
If you lock
Emerald
me in a
Coast or
box, don't blame me for getting that wrong again.
yeah. But then they do play William Peace and they've got Virginia Lynchburg, so they have a couple non D ones on there before the end of the year. Uh, yeah. As far as the upcoming schedule, we just mentioned what Greensboro's got ahead here. Chattanooga's going to be hosting Evansville on Friday, and what are we talking about here? Western Carolina, are they on here? Sleeka, help me find them.
They're going to be playing at Tennessee Tech on Tuesday.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh,
Then they
and they're
got
hosting
North
North
Alabama.
Alabama, North Alabama on Sunday. There they are.
Yeah, this is going to be a good game to watch. I don't know. It's still really early. Furman could really emerge and be good again, but they've got a big game at UAB coming
Yeah.
up Saturday.
Oh, don't write off Furman at all yet. I'll pull Furman's schedule up here.
Yeah,
Yeah, their losses were Liberty and Wyoming. Nothing to.
right.
I mean, Wyoming is okay this year, but still is a Mountain West team. It's a team we're not going to be
Yeah, I
discussing
was
on
expecting.
the show.
I was expecting Furman to win that game,
Well,
but Liberty's outstanding.
Furman has a real interesting schedule for their next 4 games. Other than that South Carolina State home game, at UAB, at Princeton, at Arkansas.
Whew. We'll get to them later. I'm assuming.
Yeah. Uh, on that note, let's go back to the rest of the leagues. Let's go back up to the America East, where Griggs, we have 2 very good teams here as well, which is very different than our normal America East, where we're only talking about Vermont.
Yeah, and let's talk about UMass Lowell. Going out there, their only loss was that game at Arizona State, and that was a game where they had a lead for much of it, really had a chance to win. I would argue
A game they blew.
that they
Absolutely
kind of blew it. And they win that game. Holy crap! What are they looking like then? But they're going to be right in this race with Vermont. It isn't that they're playing crappy teams and barely finding ways to beat crappy teams, and their record's more bloated than usual. Like if you watch Lowell, they look good. They look as good as anybody else I've seen out of this league.
And Vermont's only loss is that loss to Liberty, the team we just mentioned earlier, as being a pretty darn good Liberty team. We'll be getting to them in a little while here in the championship game of their holiday tournament, their MT tournament, whatever we're calling them these days.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I want to call them exempt events again because that's what I grew up calling.
But Sleeka, how about a shout out to the Black Bears of Maine last night, going down to South Florida and really dominating the entire game.
Well, this was also a bit of a mixed bag for Maine coming into that game where they beat Presbyterian on a neutral court and then lose at North Florida. But at least they get one win out of the trip down in the Sunshine State.
Yeah, again, South Florida, not an under the radar team. It's always nice to see a non under the radar win from these teams.
A really good a good coach. I think it's going to take them. South Florida is going places as a program, albeit maybe not this year.
Here we go. Upcoming games. We can use this little thing here to highlight them. I always forget that I have this capability here. Vermont's at Bradley and hosting Dartmouth this week. Lowell only game is at Stonehill.
Yeah, they should win that one.
I would also highlight Bryant and Xavier coming up tomorrow because we've also seen what Bryant did at Florida Atlantic the week prior, getting a win against the Owls.
Right. Yes. We talked about this the other night on Under the Radar. Is that the biggest surprise of the year? For me, it was. I mean, even more so than JMU over Michigan State, because Bryant is, let's just say things aren't going well there.
It also, but Griggs, it was their first game after they officially got rid of Grasso and Phil Martelli Jr. became, I think he's still interim coach, but he is going to coach the entire season. And maybe that kind of helps things settle down as well. Although to win against a team that was ranked in the top 10 and was legit coming off from Final Four and had everybody back. Yes, that's a surprising win by Bryant. No doubt about it. Over in the A-Sun, Stalika, we've I don't know what we've got. Everybody's got 2 or 3 losses, I think. So I'll take it away.
Well, we had just hit on North Florida getting a win against
Maine. Okay, you beat Maine. Okay, go ahead. Try again.
Well, otherwise you have to go to Kennesaw State. They get a win in one of the exempt events against Northeastern, but end up losing at the buzzer against East Carolina on a half-court 3. And this wasn't just like right across the line. This was like maybe about 60 feet away. So a tough way to lose that game for the Owls.
Yeah, maybe Stetson's win over Central Michigan, not that bad, given that Central Michigan had picked up a scalp earlier this year.
Yeah, I gotta give a.
Who did Central Michigan beat again? Somebody remind me. But they beat somebody.
Yeah, and the fact that they beat anybody was kind of a surprise. None of the directional schools looking at.
All right, but go ahead, Greg. You make your comment.
Well,
I'll
yeah,
find out who Central
Eastern
Michigan beat.
Kentucky yesterday hosted Prairie View in the middle of the afternoon. It was a field trip game. A lot of kids were there, and you schools for whatever reason want to torture themselves by inviting 8, 9, and 10-year olds to fill their arena. And normally you schedule someone a non D1 or someone you could easily beat, like Prairie View. EKU did not only not easily beat them, they lost to them. And with about 5 minutes to go, the kids got up and left. The arena was empty, and that was just so comical. If you were on our group chat, the kids walked out on EKU.
Well, to be fair, this was the day before Thanksgiving. I don't think they wanted to go over the quadratic equation.
uh, uh, Going back 1 second, Central Michigan's win was over South Florida, and I think we now know that a South Florida win may not be that impressive of a win this year, but Stetson beat Central Michigan, who beat South Florida. Yeah. Not good when you're mentioned multiple times on the Under the Radar podcast and you're not under the
Not
radar
under
team.
the
That's all
radar,
I
yeah.
gotta say. Upcoming schedule here. You can see all the games there. Again, I'm not certain what we're circling because I'm not certain who we need to pay attention to in this league at this point.
I don't think anyone's going to be near the bubble. This is feeling very
No, yeah, no. I think the bubble may be for the 16 versus 15 line out of this
Yeah.
conference. Griggs. Wednesday though, next Wednesday, the night of our next Under the Radar podcast, Bellarmine at Louisville, huge crosstown rivalry.
Yeah, I still think Bellarmine is the best team in Louisville. It's a shame that a city with that kind of basketball tradition has its best team ineligible for the NCAA tournament, but what can you do?
Of course, the other interesting game on Wednesday is going to be Moorhead at Austin P. I'm surprised the Eagles aren't playing either a non-D1 game or a bye game.
Well, I guess they get one each year. It's kind of a local game too, right?
Yeah.
Big Sky Conference. We're up to Griggs.
Yeah.
Here we have a bit of a story with this Portland State team. They did suffer the one loss, kind of a surprising loss to St. Thomas in their
Yeah.
in their round robin event that they're in there.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Had you told me at the beginning of the year that St. Thomas would have beaten Portland State, I would have been, well, okay, yeah, I guess Portland State's not that good. But Portland State in their other 4 or 5 games has been really good, really surprising, multiple wins on the road against good teams.
Well,
I think one of the bigger under the radar surprises.
I will throw this out there as far as Portland State goes. It was their third game in 3 days. They had won. These games were all at California Baptist. They had won the game against California Baptist as well as beating Cal Poly. So 3 games in 3 days. I know St. Thomas also 3 games in 3 days, but it doesn't completely. You got to read that with a little grain of salt.
And that was another game where they won at the buzzer with a 3-pointer in the Cal Baptist's home gym.
Right, and that's the question. And I know the sample size is small. Is Portland State going to keep this momentum going, or are they just going to fall back into the middle, bottom half of the league like we kind of expected them to be as the season plays out? Because they are off to a surprisingly good start. Probably one of the more, on the successful side anyway, bigger under the radar surprises of the year, I would say.
Well, look at this schedule, though. I mean, they don't really have many challenges. Portland, a bye game at Wazoo, Lewis and Clark, George Fox at San Diego. They have a lot of. I mean, they have winnable games the rest of the way here, maybe other than that game at Wazoo. But I mean, the other story though, Salika, has been Weber State goes to this event up in wherever they were up in
New
Canada,
Brunswick.
up in New Brunswick in Canada. There gets the win over Yale, what I thought was the best team in that event. I thought they were the second best team, but they lose their games to both Colgate and Gardner Webb at the same event.
Yeah, and that's by a grand total of 3 points too.
Right. Yeah. All the games were close. The Yale win was overtime. So I don't know. And they won at St. Mary's. So what do we make of them?
Well, I know we probably wouldn't be making much of a St. Mary's at this point. However, that's still going to be a pretty good win by Big Sky standards as far as Weber State goes.
Yeah, I think the big key, though, Griggs, is how they do on the 27th. What is that, Monday against Navajo Tech?
If they don't do well in that game, it's pretty much lights out.
There's very few schools I never heard of before. This is a new one for me, Navajo Tech.
Yeah, Navajo Tech. But Weber State, it looked like they were building, the kind of resume that can land you on the bubble or inside the bubble. And that's one of the things, the reality of the sport, of the structure of it anyway. These under the radar teams don't have as many strikes simply because they don't have as many opportunities. those 2 wins that could sink them. Now, there's still a lot of season left. Of course, if they win out, they're inside the bubble, but those hurt. Even though it's early, even though it's not even Thanksgiving yet, those losses hurt Weaver.
Yeah, I mean, those could be a pair of tournament teams, but you're looking at 14, 15 seed tournament
Right,
teams,
yeah.
and I know it's only 3 points, but you've lost your margin for error to slip up in a game against Northern Arizona, against Northern Colorado, against Idaho
Right,
State, some weird conference game that you don't have that margin for error anymore.
right, yeah.
Griggs, let me stick with you here. Next conference is the Big South Conference,
Yeah.
where I guess we want to talk a little bit about Longwood. I
Uh,
don't know, do we?
Another good story. I guess why not Longwood at the top of the league? We weren't expecting to see them there. How about my UNC Asheville guys still looking for their first D1 win? Uh, I don't gamble, and it's a damn good thing I don't.
I guess we could also mention, Gardner Webb did pick up the win that we just mentioned over Weber State, but did they lose their other
Yeah.
2 games? They lost to Yale in overtime
And a
uh,
Colgate.
and to Colgate.
Yeah.
So that was a
We've
great event.
seen
Actually,
that.
every game in that event was a close game. So if you
Yeah, it
didn't watch
was.
those, go back and watch them on replay or something.
Yeah, and a good job by whichever one of our colleagues was involved in putting that together up in Virginia.
Yeah,
He
little
did a
shout
hell of a job. But
little
yeah,
shout out
the
to Rocco
story
Miller, who
is-
slept in and missed the podcast this morning. But
yeah, he overslept. Yeah, he's up in New Brunswick partying, and in California. Yeah, Rocco's multiple. But yeah, Chad, to your point, I think the story in this league is the 2 biggest ones are 2 that we weren't even looking at all coming into the year. Longwood, who at least has some recent, history of success, and Presby, who has none ever since coming up. How about Presby? Another big surprise. Some of their wins, winning at Vanderbilt,
but you
5-2 overall.
you lose to Maine and you lose a home game just yesterday at home in overtime to Tennessee Tech. So
Yeah,
yeah,
who's
but
so
they
bad.
kind of so
Yeah,
it's an up and down, and which is why I think all these teams will be. We
right.
may end
Yeah,
up with teams like Radford won their little 4-team tournament they were in. They were not in the main bracket; they were in the side bracket in their event. But at least
yeah.
they got something over. They got a trophy they brought home, I assume.
Yeah, and Radford's looked good. If you're asking about the eye test, which I kind of hate that term, but Radford has looked pretty good.
I mean, look at their loss to James Madison. I hate looking at losses, but they were right
Yeah,
there with with the
and
top 25 JMU team on Friday night.
they were in there with Duke for a
Yeah.
good portion of that game. Yeah, I mean not at the end of the game, but
Upcoming schedule here. Why don't we take a look at Radford's schedule, especially here for the upcoming week? And there they are. They are hosting Notre Dame. Look at
Notre
that.
Dame, the Irish going to Virginia.
Notre
Whoa!
Dame of Maryland, and they're
Yeah,
at Old Dominion. Winnable road game here. They should go. They could go 2-0 this week.
yeah, they really well. If they lose at home to Notre Dame of Maryland,
They
it should
got
count as
serious.
about
Yes,
4 losses.
true. Uh,
And we
uh,
also have another Zach special with the apprentice school visiting Longwood next Thursday.
Apprentice at Longwood. There we go. That'll be next. We got to just talk about that game next week as well, because we'll do our under the radar on Wednesday night next week. Uh, Lots to talk about Apprentice.
Yeah.
Stalika, Big West Conference, where here we go. Two of the remaining about 70 or so undefeated teams in the nation are here, including those ineligible UC San Diego. What are they? The Tritons, I believe.
Yes, the Tritons.
Including a dominating win over Navy over this past weekend, and Hawaii out to a 3-0 start as well.
Yeah, Hawaii also managed to get a win Tuesday night, like right after the Maui Invitational game.
It was the Maui bonus game, late Tuesday night.
Maui
Yeah,
bonus
very
game.
late.
And then UC Irvine also gets a couple wins in their exempt event where they beat Pepperdine and also Toledo.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a team, Griggs, I really want to discuss here is this Irvine team. Let's pull them up, in fact.
Yeah, for the second year in a row, you get the impression that if the NCAA tournament was in November, Irvine would be a Final Four team. They've got the win at USC. I believe that's Toledo's only loss, and it was on a neutral floor. Pepperdine pretty strong. I mean, they've looked really good. Their only loss, the season opener against San Jose State on the road. San Jose State, nothing special, but I mean, still, like for that to be the only loss, and it was the first game of the year, and it was on the road. That's pretty solid. That has the makings of a really good profile.
Yeah, and look at this upcoming schedule, though. They got a game against Rice coming up tomorrow on Friday.
Yeah.
At Duquesne, at
That's
Utah
going to be
State, at
huge.
San Diego State. But that Duquesne game, they got to travel all the way across country, play at
Yeah.
Duquesne, then come all the way back, play at Utah State. And this is a tough 4 game
Yeah.
stretch here. Even six
And
if you include the New Mexico game. Go out 2 more.
yeah, and if you look at how Utah State is playing this year, really impressive, maybe as good as anyone in the Mountain West outside of San Diego State. With all those new players and new coaches, they have played well early. It is not going to be easy to go there and win. They probably won't.
Yeah, here's the rest of the upcoming schedule for this week in the Big West. Sleek, anything else we're circling besides Irvine's games?
I'll look at some of the Hawaii games. We're going to be playing UTRGV and then either San Diego or Arkansas State. So hopefully a chance for the Warriors to pick up a few extra wins.
Yeah, they're going to Florida for those games. That's part of the Emerald Coast Classic. So a little cross-country trip there for the Warriors. Absolutely. Sleek, let me stick with you here for the Coastal Athletic. My notes still say Colonial, but they are not the Colonial anymore.
I'm going to. It'll be at least another year before I get out of the force of habit of calling it.
At least it says Coastal on the screen. I did update that. But
Yeah.
Stalika, how about Hofstra actually? Even though they've got 2 losses, I thought they were impressive with the wins over Buffalo and Wright State and then High Point in overtime to win their event.
Well, these were games where they blew Buffalo out of the water and had a decent win against the Raiders right here. And then they followed that up with a win against a high-scoring, high-point team that I know Rocco has been high on of late.
High on High Point.
But yes, I'm the one that you all locked up.
Uh, Griggs, what about? I mean, you got Delaware's 4-0. Wilmington's off to a 4-1 start.
Wilmington is the one. Like they're off to a 4-1 start, and they, to me, I think look the best. I think that if there's a program that's going to make a run at the bubble, it's them. There's other good teams. Charleston, I think, is going to get it figured out and end up having a big year. But will they have a big enough year? Last year, 30 wins or 31, whatever it was, only landed them on the 12 line. Albeit, I think the league is a little bit stronger this year. But if you ask me who I like the best so far, I would say Wilmington.
I think the top of the league might be stronger. I think the bottom of the league might be weaker, and that may end up balancing out as you have all those
Yeah.
bad games. With 14 teams, you have so many of those games against the bottom teams that you're gonna have to play during conference play. It may
Yeah.
not help any of those metrics.
Right. Yeah. Because I mean that just zapped them. Like last year, it was the same. There were 3 or 4 really good teams and 11 awful ones.
Right.
So
Uh, Here is the upcoming schedule. Delaware trying to remain undefeated with either Brown and then either Greensboro or Kansas City on Saturday.
yeah,
And then possibly possibly even Gardner Webb or Middle Tennessee or who is that? Ohio U.
right.
I don't know who's in that
And
event there.
if the chalk holds and they get Greensboro on Saturday, that Delaware Greensboro is a great game.
I also want to keep an eye on Towson. They had 3 tough losses in the Charleston Classic, but now they're going to be taking on one of their City 5 opponents in Baltimore, where they take on Morgan State at home. Hopefully, get back on the winning side.
If they have any trouble with that game, then we can forget about their season, Salika, honestly. Jumping over here, who are we up to here? Grace, Stalika, let's go Stalika, Conference USA, and can we talk about the Liberty Flames? Very impressive so far, I think.
Well, considering they're winning the Myrtle Beach Invitational that includes wins against Vermont, so yes, they're going to be a serious contender for our number 1 under the radar top 10 that we'll be getting into later on, but also getting the win against Wichita State and Furman in this tournament. It's also going to give them some decent quality wins right here. But if you're looking, that's going to be coming up ahead within a week or so, going to Florida Atlantic. This is where the Flames could potentially be promoted up to the top 25 if they can pull that one off.
Yeah, I'm definitely circling that game, Griggs. Here, given that Florida Atlantic has looked vulnerable with their Bryant loss and Liberty's looked so good, I think Liberty can win this game. They may be the better team.
They may be. At least they might be showing it now. And then again, did FAU just oversleep that day or what? I don't know. But Liberty is one of those teams that you think that they're legit top 40, regardless of what the polls say. We talked about that earlier, but this is a team that is you see them on the 10 line and you're like, yeah, that's about where they belong.
Yeah, I mean, look at the metrics that we do have. JNG, this is updated through yesterday's games. They're up to 23 in the JNG,
Yeah.
even 18 in the ESPN strength of record. Ken Palm has them at 45.
Yeah,
Those are inside the bubble numbers.
they are.
I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know if they'll be there at the end of the season, especially when they get into conference play, because Conference USA is not what it used to be, and not that it was much, but not that it was much before. But
Right. But I think, going to Sam Houston, going to middle, there is enough to sustain a top 40 profile in CUSA if they blow through it, which I think they're good enough to do. UTEP has been good so far. I don't know if that's going to keep up. But
UTEP did lose to Bradley yesterday in the championship game of the SoCal.
fairly good Bradley team. We'll get to Bradley here.
Yeah, but that was after UTEP had beaten Cal. Sam Houston played Ole Miss really tight on Friday, did lose by 3. So they've shown some life as well. Rest of the upcoming schedule here, Salika, anything else that you are circling, including the Battle of the Bowling Greens here on Friday?
Well, that's going to be one notable game in Kentucky to watch, and then we're going to see if New Mexico State still has a hangover from Cancun when they go down to Louisville for a game on Sunday.
Yeah, not. I don't think this is quite the New Mexico State team that we saw in some past years. I think
I don't
when
know.
everything
They've
fell apart last
completely
year.
had to retool the roster.
Well, they had to retool the department. I think. Wow.
Yeah.
Let's not relive that. It was not. I don't want to even make fun of
that. Griggs, how about the Horizon League?
The Horizon League. Purdue Fort Wayne with the bloated record. I guess my question about Purdue Fort Wayne is how good are they really? Is this symptomatic of a weaker schedule, or are they better than expected? It's too bad Rocco's not here to give us 20 straight minutes on them but there's nothing that's really at DePaul. DePaul's in the Big East, but they're not really a Big East caliber team. I almost think that win against the Yotes is their best win.
I mean, they were right in that game at San Francisco also. That's a tough thing to go all the way across the country to San Francisco and play a game.
Yeah, and they were. And the Dons are, while rebuilding, still pretty good. But who is the story of this league? We all liked NKU coming into the year, and once they get in the league play, still might be the best. But no one's really shown out, at least not to me. This pains me so much because I want Penguin fever back. I want someone.
NKU got crushed by Cincinnati. Not that we expected them to win the game, but to get blown out of the building was really disappointing. Wright State showed some life with a couple wins and the loss to Hofstra in their event there.
Yeah,
but they picked up 2 out of 3 wins there.
Yeah, Wright State's losses have been close. What happened to this league? I mean, it sort of slipped a little bit. For a while, you felt like, it was 13-14, one of the better under the radar leagues. Is this destined for another 15 or 16 seed this year?
Well, the good news for Northern Kentucky is nobody saw that loss because there was not many people in the stands for that one.
There we go. Yeah, I think you're right, Griggs. Though that right now I'm seeing way bottom of the bracket type of again for this league, which is surprising. Here's the rest of the upcoming schedule. Youngstown is going to be at Dayton coming up here on Friday. Rest of the games are Oakland at Xavier coming up on Monday.
But Wednesday we do get the opening of the Horizon League right here.
Yeah,
they are running a 20-game conference schedule, so they're going to start conference play in December here.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I guess Wednesday's still November, isn't it? Oh, wow,
it is.
November
conference.
The
idea of this, and I kind of get it, is you don't want to open your conference season during the Christmas break when the students aren't there. You sort of want it to be an event. I know that it's a little bit awkward as far as the structure of the schedule to play conference games and then go in the winter break and not play any of them. But I kind of think it works. Remember the old bracket buster? A lot of conferences did this back then to open up a week off during the conference schedule, and it worked back then. So,
and Oakland's going to have a tough stretch here. They're going to have a bye game at Xavier on Monday, and then they got to meet their downstate rivals, Detroit Mercy, a couple days later.
Yeah.
Salika, Ivy League time, and this was our feature conference last week, and otherwise it would have been our feature conference again this week because conference keeps registering some impressive wins. Yale did go 2-1 in their event, did have that loss to Weber State in overtime, but you've got Princeton sitting here at 5-0. With wins at Monmouth and Old Dominion this week, you've got Cornell at 5-1, Harvard at 5-1, Yale at 4-2. Wow.
Well, Princeton's probably going to be Grig's favorite team just because they've got what is it, 4 true road wins and the
They do.
court win against Rutgers, and they'll finally get a home game on Saturday.
They are Stalika, and largely for that reason. But even if you think I overvalue road wins, holy crap! Look at that! Like the win at Duquesne, the Rutgers win. Why are they registering that as a Rutgers home game? Because it was not on.
No, that's a neutral court game.
It was played in Trenton.
Okay, so they're going to count that as neutral.
Yeah,
court.
yeah. If
Okay.
it says versus on the screen, it counts as a neutral.
Okay, because I was seeing a lot of people score that. Okay, and this is NCAA.
And yeah. Home road neutral on this screen is pulled directly from the NCAA for this for this screen. So I'm going by what the NCAA is registering.
Okay, and if they're counting, well, it makes sense. It was a neutral game. It should count as a neutral game. But yeah, they got that win. They went to Hofstra. Monmouth not so much, but Hofstra will win a lot of home games. Duquesne will win a lot of home games. I mean, those are 3 great wins.
Don't write off Monmouth yet. They won at West Virginia, remember?
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. All right. But you've also got in here Cornell and Harvard. Harvard had a decent. Oh, actually, Harvard suffered their loss this week to Boston College. But other than that, they've won all their games.
Right.
Cornell with a couple wins and won their tournament with wins over Cal State Fullerton and Utah Valley.
And even Columbia finally got a win after Long Island was stuck in traffic for 2 or 3 hours going into that game.
Yeah,
it took them 3 hours to get across town. They should have taken the subway.
Harvard picked up the win at Colgate yesterday, which is nice. I mean, Colgate is probably the best team in the Patriot League, and Harvard
that is a good win.
Nice.
And Harvard's another team that's. I mean, again, why would it surprise you that they're good? But I wasn't expecting them to be as good as they appear to be. Is this a multi? Look at these records. These D1 records, and look at these net. Well, the net they're all one, but this is shaping up to be a multi-bid league.
Look at 4.
That's for sure.
4 top 100 teams in the JNG, 2 top 35 teams at the top there.
And when you look at the games they've won, the Ivy's outperforming the A10, and maybe even the American.
Here's the upcoming schedule as well. Yale has a road game at Rhode Island. They could really use that win, actually, because Yale's the one team that we expected more out of, even that they've given us. Princeton's at Bucknell and hosting Northeastern. So lots of good games coming up here. Not that they're playing any really power conference teams, but I mean, Brown is in an exempt event. Belmont's at Penn, so Penn is hosting Belmont. Griggs, Metro Atlantic Conference time.
Okay.
Go ahead. Tell me what's going on in this league, because it's one of those leagues that most of us don't really pay much attention to until we get to conference play, honestly.
Iona was the team I kind of had my eye on, and I liked how they played down in Charleston, even though it was a loss. And Quinnipiac has bloated out their record to 3-1 against some really weak competition. And St. Peter's, that's in New Jersey, isn't it?
Yes.
Like that's where you are, one of those Jersey schools.
One of those former Sweet 16 Jersey schools. Yes, go ahead.
Former Sweet 16. Siena, they play in the Pepsi. I don't know. I'm really reaching here, Chad. What else would you like to discuss?
Manhattan is off to a 3-1 start. That's kind of surprising, actually.
Yeah, one of those geographically confused New York schools.
Upcoming schedule here: Manhattan at UConn. Circle the game. Is the upset gonna happen? The answer is no. Iona with a road trip to Colorado on Sunday. Colorado's actually been underperforming, and St. Peter's at Rutgers on Monday night.
I don't know if Colorado's been underperforming. They've been overrated, but.
Rider was the team we liked most heading into this season. Interesting game coming up on Tuesday at Maryland. Maryland has not looked very good so far this year. So
not at all.
See what happens.
Yeah, but Albany will be the place to be Sunday with the inner city matchup between the Great Danes and the Saints.
Yeah, I
Here we
love
go,
that
the
game.
Battle of Albany.
Mhm.
I'm sure that's got a name. We got to find out what that is. I should know it.
It does have a name. I love that game. It's
Mhm.
home and home. I like that they continue to play that.
Stalika, Mid-American Conference. This is right up in your neck of the woods here.
Well, this was probably a week where Kent State and Akron were hoping to make some noise in their exempt events, and Akron, unfortunately, they had back-to-back losses to Utah State and Drake, so not being much of a case being made as far as their at-large cases go. Kent State at least got third place down in the Paradise Jam after losing to Missouri State, so they get a win against Fordham, so that'll at least help their schedule a little bit, we hope. And you got Ball State, who's actually at the top of the league right now, or at least the non-conference standings. They get a win against a USC Upstate.
Yeah, it actually was a pretty bad week for the MAC, all things considered here.
Yeah.
I mean, I was expecting a little more out of this conference this year, and they really kind of had a lot of toe stubs in terms of having any shot at getting a team inside the bubble, come
Yeah.
March.
In the individual teams, really big on Akron, and I know that the two teams that beat them are good, but that's just it. We say it all the time. You're probably sick of hearing me say it. That's the point. In order to prove you're good yourself and that you belong in the tournament, you have to beat other teams that are good. Akron went kind of 0 for 2 in their opportunities.
Yeah, but Toledo losing to New Mexico and Irvine, they were tough games to win, but you
Yeah,
want to be up there, you got to do it. Same
yeah,
thing with Kent State with the loss to Missouri State. You got to win that game
you
if you
do.
think
Yeah,
you want to be there. And Ball State, they only have one loss, but they got blown out by Evansville.
right. Who is not good?
But I think
Uh,
one team that did actually have a good week in this league was actually Northern Illinois. They get a true road win at Georgia State and then end up getting a neutral court victory against Little Rock. So at least they bumped their league up or record up to 3-1 against a D1 competition.
Mhm.
I mean, we were not expecting much from any of the directional schools this conference this year, so we'll see. Maybe they're a team to circle here. Uh, here's the upcoming schedule for the conference here. Ohio is in that event that we mentioned earlier, involving a lot of these under the radar schools. And what else we got? Charleston at Kent State,
Yeah,
uh,
Toledo, Indiana State game's kind of interesting
Toledo,
tomorrow.
Indiana
Now,
State.
if Northern Illinois is able to win their 2 games in Chicago against DePaul and Northwestern, they will absolutely have our attention.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The Paul win, maybe not so much. Northwestern definitely, because they'll have our attention next week. If Northern Illinois goes 2-0, the MAC is our feature conference next week. Just telling you guys that,
Yeah.
and it'll be all about NIU. Uh, we're up to Sleek. No, sorry, Griggs. Let's go to you for the MEAC,
Yeah.
because
And
I know you like the conferences with so much to talk about this time of year.
yeah, just and again, this conference does an excellent job of building up its bank account as best it can. I still like Norfolk as far as being the best team in the league, but Howard has looked pretty good. If you're asking me for an overall measurement of what it's going to look like once we get into league play, I'd say Howard and Norfolk are the two horses that are going to kind of sprint to the front.
How about a little shout out this week for Maryland Eastern Shore with an overtime win over Pennsylvania, who was coming off of the win over Villanova. So,
Yeah,
that's a little bit of something. And we talked about how good these Ivy League teams have been playing. Here's a win
right.
over an Ivy League team out of the MEAC.
Yeah, for sure.
Uh,
So good job, Eastern Shore.
South Carolina,
Program that's really struggled.
South Carolina State yesterday looked amazing against Missouri for the first 10 minutes. I think they had about a 15-point lead, and I don't think they scored again the rest of the
Yeah.
game. uh, uh, and let's just jump over then to the quick look at the upcoming schedule from the MEAC. There you go.
Tuesday's the big one.
Tuesday's the big
Cincinnati
one.
visits the Burr.
Yeah.
Oh yes, big one there
And
Tuesday.
good on Cincinnati for going there and playing that game. Cincinnati should win it, but there are easier games they could have played.
Stalika, how about the Missouri Valley Conference?
This was a good week if you're a Missouri State fan, where you end up getting the win in the Paradise Jam. They get the wins against the Florida Gulf Coast. We had already touched on the Kent State game, and then they beat Abilene Christian to win the trophy over there. And then you've got Bradley, who's still undefeated after getting a couple wins in I believe, the SoCal Challenge against Tulane, and then UTEP to knock the Miners out of the realm of the unbeaten.
And Evansville quietly 4-0 here, Griggs. We were not
Yeah,
expecting much of this team, but we've mentioned them a couple times already on the show, and here they
yeah,
are 4-0.
yeah. Kind of a surprise there. Drake, in their one loss, they did not mess around. They were not in that game at all.
A
Um,
92-68 loss to SFA. Yeah.
Yeah, which again, SFA is good, but I would have expected Drake to be able to win that one. But Bradley is the team. I thought Bradley would be good, but they've looked the best to me so far. Because yeah, they're 5-0, but like it seems like all of their wins have value. They were all against good. Either a lot of them are against other good under the radar teams or programs like Tulane that we think will take a big step forward. And you look at this, you got Bradley, you got Drake, who, while they lost, you've got a lot of wins. Like, look at that left side of the column there. We talk about how crucial it is to win in November during these exempt events. I see a lot of blue over there, Chad.
I see a lot of blue. I'll tell you, the one team that has been really disappointing. I thought Northern Iowa would be a contender this
Yes.
year, this conference, and we just
Don't
talked
have
about
a
how
full
bad
win.
South Florida is. They lose this South Florida team that everyone else in these under the radar conferences is beating. And I didn't really expect them to beat North Carolina yesterday, but they weren't even in that game in the
Yeah,
first
they
round of the
were in
Battle for
it for
Atlantis.
about 15 minutes, all the way up. I mean, in the first half, it's like, oh, right, where has this been?
Yeah.
And then by halftime, it was like, where did this go?
And now they got to play Texas Tech today, and they could end up with I believe Memphis or Michigan on Friday.
Yeah.
It would be
they're
Michigan or Stanford.
Yeah,
sorry, Michigan or
Michigan.
Stanford. Yes, thank you, Michigan or Stanford. Uh, here's the other upcoming games. We circle that Vermont Bradley game on Saturday, though, definitely.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah.
Um, all the other games we're really circling here, I'm not certain, but there could be a few good ones here. Evansville's games are at Chattanooga. Actually, circle this one here Friday as well. Evansville undefeated at a Chattanooga team that we started the show off by discussing how they're doing
Yeah,
in the SoCon.
yeah, that's a good one.
And then
I'm not
Wednesday
sold
we
on the
also
Aces yet, but I'm not selling them yet either. If
Mhm.
they win that one, you got to start paying attention.
Wednesday we also get conference openers for a number of teams.
Yeah,
Yeah, but I believe are they going 18 games or 20 games here in the
I think it's
MVC?
18. I just
Yeah.
think that like some of the other leagues, they don't want to open conference play over the break. They want the students
Mm.
there.
All right. Griggs, Northeast Conference, one of our favorite leagues here. Although there's not too much to write home about so far, especially after Fairleigh Dickinson, has not looked really that great. They did not look very well at Queens last night, at least.
Yeah. Um, I still think that they're probably the strongest team in this league, although Sacred Heart might lay claim to that. But again, we're looking at as great as this league is once it gets into league play. You feel like you're sort of going through the motions until then. It's hard for anybody to really show out. But I, I think it's going to be a two-horse race pretty much between FDU and Sacred Heart.
Yeah, and Salika, Long Island, our defending centenary champion as the worst team in D1, is trying to claim back-to-back titles so far.
Well, they certainly get bonus points for getting stuck in traffic, as we discussed earlier.
So does that loss not count then?
No, I think they have to count that as two losses in that case.
Yeah.
Uh, upcoming
We
schedule.
did
Go ahead,
see
Griggs.
something. Yeah, I guess. Did you all see Donald Copeland and Shea Holloway, the former pals and teammates, had a really interesting handshake at the end of the Sacred Heart or the uh, Seton Hall Wagner game. If you didn't, and what was funny is that the commentators obviously weren't watching what was happening because they were talking about how much they loved and respected and were proud of each other.
Yeah, commentators were completely not watching. They're almost throwing fists while the commentators are talking about how much these guys
Right.
like each other. It was pretty funny.
It was pretty funny, but
And they both
I
apologized
still don't know what
afterwards. So
happened that led to that. They are friends. They are teammates, or were.
upcoming schedule here on the screen. A Circle Sunday here, a little old school NEC action here. Fairleigh Dickinson at Robert Morris. That was
Yes.
yeah, yes, going
Yeah.
back playing their old conference rivals on the road there.
Mhm.
Uh, Salika, Ohio Valley Conference time, and it's the Ohio Valley Conference where the only team that we thought had any type of pulse heading into the season lost their best player before the start of the year, that being Morehead State, and I don't know what we do with this league.
Well, I think we also have to take a look at Tennessee Martin getting a win at Eastern Kentucky. That's going to be a bit of an attention getter when you consider EKU was a possible favorite to win the A-Sun. And you look at what else they've done. They also get a double overtime win against North Alabama yesterday.
I'm sorry, Slicka. You're talking about the Tennessee Martin team that lost by 12 points to Prairie View?
The same team that lost
Okay,
by
okay,
12 to.
yeah, okay. Just making certain.
They're all over the place. We'll just to say it lightly.
If I'm looking for a bright spot, it's Tennessee State. But then again, it's hard to argue for a team.
They've won D1 win, Griggs.
Yeah, and it was at LMU, and they blew them out, and which is not the easiest road trip. And then they went to Oregon, and were in that game. But come on, like you scheduled 3 non-D1s.
Yeah, here's Tennessee State's impressive schedule. They have beaten Fisk, Kentucky State, and Midway.
Yeah.
Are we sure Midway's not in the OVC now?
Well, Midway played 4 games in 4 days against 4 different OVC schools in the past week or something like that. It's ridiculous. Upcoming schedule for the OVC. If you want to talk Tennessee State, here we go. They're going to get Mercer. They're going to get a road trip to Chicago State. Chicago State does not get very many home games, so they better look out for that.
And the East-West Phantoms on Tuesday going to Southern Indiana.
There we go. East-West University of Southern Indiana, one of our favorite non-D1s.
One of our favorites. Nothing will ever beat Open Bible. No. Which was our favorite, since this is under the radar? Was it Open Bible or Carver Bible?
Carver Bible was a great one.
Yeah.
Open Bible was another good one. East-West, one of our favorites as well.
Yeah.
Walla Walla.
Walla Walla, yeah.
Eastern Washington, we didn't talk about it in the Big Sky. Eastern Washington played them this past week, I think just yesterday. The Patriot League, Griggs.
Yes. So Colgate, I still think it's Colgate and Friends, and that's what it's going to end up being.
Colgate won 2 out of 3 in that event up in Canada there. So
yeah, they did,
and then lost at home to Harvard. But
right, which was a nice win for Harvard. Colgate, they seem to. The one thing that still kind of sticks out is that Syracuse game. It's just for someone like me that's not easy to forget. But they've played well all year long, despite only being 3-3. They've played away from home, and they've played good teams away from home. I think everybody else, it's just who gets to lose to them on their home court in the conference championship game. Is there anybody that you've seen that remotely looks like they can play with Colgate?
But if you want to talk about other tough games, American had a 10-point lead at Georgetown with 4 minutes to go, and that melted away. You can read about that in Titel's write-up of Hanging with the Hoyas.
Yeah. I would tell you, if there is somebody else I'm kind of keeping an eye on, it might be this American team after the way they did play against Georgetown. Circle Wednesday. They're at Harvard next Wednesday. So, if they can win that game, I'll start paying attention to American here.
Okay.
Otherwise, let's just give Colgate this auto bid and move on to another league here.
Yeah.
We already did the SoCon. Let's skip that one here, and let's go Slika over to the Southland Conference.
Well, Texas A&M Commerce, they've had a couple. Well, they had a nice win at St. Joe's, which, like I said, it's only going to help as far as window dressing right here. They also get an 11-point win at home against Stonehill.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we're probably talking about McNeese State at the end of the day, though, in this league.
Mm-hmm.
Griggs, are we not?
Yeah, I think so. And again, there's if you really look, there's other moments of teams playing well, but I think it's McNeese. They're the ones that's shown out the most so far.
And especially once Will Wade gets back to it, I think they just should get better. So
yeah,
or
right.
Worse, who knows? Go ahead.
We're invoking the Pete Gaudette rule where Wade will get credit for the wins and his assistant will get credit for all the losses.
Yeah, okay. I don't know what else we can really discuss on this league at this point in time, unfortunately. We love these teams, but I just don't know that there's much here. The upcoming schedule, McNeese at UAB Tuesday night. That might be one worth circling here.
Yeah, that's actually kind of a good one. And it's kind of it's one of those games that like you have to sort of be a hoops junkie to appreciate. They probably won't be a full arena. That's kind of a fun game.
Let's jump over to another conference right away here. Griggs, the Southwestern Athletic
Yeah.
Conference. We go from bad to worse.
Yeah. Um, I don't. I say this more sincerely than I do with humor. It was disappointing to me to see Florida A&M get Oregon on their home court and no one show up. It's the ultimate, like, how do you if you can't get people to that game, how can you get them to anything? And why wouldn't you go? Like what else was going on that night in Tallahassee? But
Yeah.
again, it's in some of these leagues are good. I'm excited to see what Grambling can do this year once they get into the conference. Once we get in the conference play, but
I love this profile though. I pulled up on the left here. Jackson State,
Jackson State, yeah, the
one
win
and
at Missouri,
five
great
with a
win.
win at Missouri, and they've lost
Yeah,
every other game.
yeah,
Uh, yeah, what was the excuse? Oh, they're the best 0-5 team in the nation. They were. Oh, I think the Missouri's head coach's excuse was they're the best 0-5 team in the nation heading into the game.
yeah,
However, they were also the only 0-5 team in the nation at that time. So
right.
there were 0-4 and 0-3 teams, but there were no other 0-5 teams. So,
So while it was technically correct,
yeah, I think we do need to give a bit of a shout out here for Prairie View. We already
yes,
three non-D1 wins on the season. Picked up two of them this week, including that win we mentioned earlier at Eastern Kentucky. So that they
yeah,
are looking like the best team in this league so far.
I think so too. Yeah, and yeah, Prairie View, they've looked the best, but come on, Grambling.
We want to look ahead here for the upcoming week schedule. Let's take a look at Prairie View. They've got just one game and they're at Tulane. That
Ooh,
might be a
yeah,
tough test on next
that's a
Wednesday.
tough one. Yeah,
Uh, Jackson State at Georgetown on Saturday. We got to circle that one. That could be another
Jack State
big
will
Jackson
probably
State
go there
win.
and win.
Stalika, Summit League time. Uh, Go ahead. What do you got?
These are going to be programs that are probably going to be more focused on the FCS playoffs coming up this weekend.
Yeah,
Now,
I
if
think
you
every
wanna-
single one of these. I think every single one of these teams' football team is in the FCS playoffs. Are they not?
Yeah, but not too many wins against actual D1 competition. But there was two true road wins if you look at South Dakota State going to Southern Miss after what's otherwise been a disappointing non-conference campaign. Even North Dakota goes on the road and gets a win at Pacific.
Yeah, South Dakota State was my preseason pick to win it, and I made comments about how I felt they were good enough to make a run at the bubble. And Oral Roberts, while rebuilding, was also going to be really good. This is why I'm locked up in debtor's prison and why I need to quit gambling.
Yeah. Now South Dakota State. Maybe this win will help them turn things around here. But
I don't
they were
understand.
0-4. They were 0-4 against D1 competition heading into that games.
Yeah,
That they
I
won.
can
they
now
haven't
confirm
looked
that
that
Griggs
good.
is no longer in the country because we haven't had debtors' prisons in several years.
Go ahead, Griggs. One more comment before we move on.
I don't understand. Like, they just haven't looked that good. I mean, I can't believe they're just 1-4 against D1.
Here's the upcoming schedule. South Dakota State. Let's get them another non-D1 game here against Mount Marty. So they're on top of
Then a
not winning
school
games. They're
from-
playing garbage.
Yeah.
North Dakota State at Grand Canyon. Maybe circle that one on Saturday.
That's a fun one, yeah.
And then at San Jose State as they stay out west there.
God, this league's been disappointing this year. Is it the Leathernecks leaving? Is that what did it?
I think so.
Yeah.
Must be. Stalika, the Sun Belt Conference.
Well, obviously,
we can't discuss James Madison. They are not under the radar. Although we can mention them in passing if you want. But how about the rest of the league? Is there anything you've seen out of it, or is it really just JMU?
It's going to be just JMU early on. I think we had also touched on Louisiana at least getting a win against Buffalo in the MAC, but also
Buffalo's bad though. Buffalo is not a good team this
and
year.
also lost to Wright State, so it does even out and not in a good way.
Way down there, they also beat Long Beach though. So that was a half decent win. Got to scroll down to get all these games on the screen.
Yeah. I want to give a quick shout out to my preseason picks to win this conference. The Southern Miss Golden Eagles. They're 0-4 against D1. Thanks, guys. And this league has been garbage outside of JMU. Just really disappointing. Troy should be good. They're not. They haven't won a D1 game. And it's one of those, even more so than the Summit League, you look at it and it's like, what the hell?
You don't know what to say about it here, and here's
Yeah.
the upcoming schedule, and I don't know that I can really circle any games outside of James Madison's games because I don't think there's any teams that I really want to watch at this point in this league the way they've played so far. They've
Right,
got to
and you
start
want to
turning
be
things
excited
around.
about Marshall and Kentucky. Marshall, another team that you thought would be okay, and they're not. They're just going to get boat raced in that game. If Southern Miss does not go to Milwaukee and win, they might as well just cancel the season.
Oh, geez. Griggs, how about the Western Athletic Conference?
Yeah, here's a league that's actually been kind of fun to watch. Grand Canyon, excellent showing out in their events. Same with SFA. Really impressed with both of them. Abilene Christian got a lot of attention with their win at Oklahoma State early. They've kind of backtracked since then, but I still think that at least the ceiling's high. I've liked watching Seattle this year a little bit better than expectations. I'm glad we're ending on this note because, like, as disappointing as the belt has been, the WAC's been a lot of fun.
Oh, we're not quite ending yet. We've got a few more things to do,
Oh, okay, yeah, yeah.
but this is our last of our full conferences here. And California Baptist, their only loss was against that Portland State team that we discussed earlier. So
Yeah.
there may be some life there as well. Sleek, any other thoughts on what you've seen so far out of the WAC?
Well, that also means we have a three-way tie for first in the Lancer Joust with everyone except Cal Poly going 2-1 in that event.
Okay. Lancer Joust standings. If you wanted them, you got them right here on Under the Right Radar, Hoops HD. Here's the upcoming schedule here. I mean, we mentioned that North Dakota State Grand Canyon game is probably the game to circle here. UC San Diego at Seattle, just because UC San Diego is undefeated at the moment, might be worth circling
Yeah,
as well.
that's a
Uh,
fun one. And Seattle, you need to watch Seattle if you're not watching Seattle. They have this like artifact in their arena that is hundreds of thousands of years old.
and
That's big.
again, another league starting conference play here next week with
Yeah.
these
Oh,
first
I
conference
didn't
games here
know.
on Wednesday.
Wow, I didn't realize the WAC was doing that. Yeah.
WAC is playing a 20 game conference schedule this year, so they have added those couple extra games in. Um, One more an individual team we have not yet discussed. How about Chicago State? Uh, Tough 1 point overtime loss, and then the 1 point win to finish third place in their tournament there.
Yeah. Yeah, the loss was kind of tough. And again, when you're Chicago State and you're just trying to build any sort of a program, every win you just sort of want to savor. I still think that there's value to this program, or in that they're taking steps forward. I'd like to see them get into a league, the Horizon, the Summit, the Ohio Valley, all of those were sort of within their geographic footprint, at least sort of, because they're still not as bad as some of the worst teams in those leagues.
Over the next 7 days, they got a pair of home games against Tennessee Martin and Delaware State, and a road trip to cross city road trip to Loyola Chicago.
Yeah,
Might be winnable.
yeah, it might be.
Uh, How about some mythical conferences?
All right,
Let's start out in the state of Utah with the Beehive
the
Conference.
Beehive. How about Utah
Utah
State?
State up to that 1
Whew.
0 start on the conference play there.
Yeah, and maybe the best team in the Beehive this year. So
Yeah, no conference games coming up this week in the
yeah.
Beehive.
When is the
Uh,
BYU Utah game? Since it's not a conference game anymore, did they move that later into the year, or is it still before?
BYU at Utah will be December 9th.
Okay,
So it's
yeah.
coming up in a couple weeks here. Yep.
Yeah.
Uh, how
God, that one.
about the Front Range Conference?
Woo-hoo! Love the Front Range.
This will be the front of Chad's stove right here.
Yeah,
Colorado State in first place currently with their win over Northern Colorado. No other conference games underway yet, but congrats to Colorado State at least. They are
yeah,
in the lead and huge coming up next Wednesday.
yeah.
They are
That one
Colorado at
is
Colorado
big.
State.
Colorado in the rankings, a team we liked, but I don't think we thought they were top 25 good coming into the year. And Colorado State unbeaten. This game, it's a mythical conference, but it's going to be wild. That atmosphere, it always is.
And we brought them in last year. We have a front range. Of course, we've got the back range involving the Arizona and New Mexico schools and UTEP too, because they're a major rival with those New Mexico schools as well.
Right.
Uh, Grand Canyon 1-0 in the league here with a win over Northern
Northern
Arizona.
Arizona, yeah,
No upcoming conference games this week either, though, unfortunately.
yeah.
And how about our newest addition?
Oh,
It's the top range. Washington State, huge win over their rivals earlier in the season. They're
yeah.
the undefeated first place team here. And as we've mentioned, Gonzaga, do not expect them to win this game. They did not bother scheduling any conference games. And I don't think you can win a conference if you don't play any conference games, can you?
I don't think so either. And they are playing Washington, but they're not playing any of the top range rivals, which is kind of sad.
And there it is, Eastern Washington with a win over Walla Walla. So that's a
Ah,
half a win in conference play
So
for Eastern
sadly,
Washington.
Walla Walla did not win promotion to the top range.
No, they would have had their shot here. We have a top range game coming up Monday night. Circle it.
Eastern Washington at Wazoo.
All right, there we go. Let's go to our under the radar top 10. Griggs and I, the only voters this week. Slika, I never got a ballot from you, or maybe forgot to hit send, but that's okay.
No, I freaked out when I saw top 25 in the email thread again.
To say top 25 again. Every week I email everyone to send me their top 25s.
Yeah.
One of these weeks I'll get it right. Honorable mentions. Even with just two of us, there's a lot of honorable mentions. Not
Ooh,
making the
yeah.
top 25. Wilmington, Harvard, Vermont, Weber, Cornell, Akron, Yale, Grand Canyon, Evansville. Yale falling all the way down to honorable mention after start of the year at the top of our lists. But here we go. Tied for ninth place, we have Lowell and Fort
Oh,
Wayne.
Purdue Fort Wayne up there. Okay.
There we go. In eighth place, Portland State.
Portland
We
State.
praised them.
Good to see that, man. Have they ever been in this?
They might have been there last week, actually. I don't remember. Chattanooga in seventh
Chattanooga.
place there. Good start for them.
Real good. And then you see the Eaters.
There's the Eaters in sixth. Tie for fourth between Western Carolina,
Western
the other
Carolina
SoCon
and
team.
Drake. Western Carolina moving up the poll.
There we go. Western Carolina. We're going for first place in Western
This is
Carolina.
what happens when I don't vote. UC Irvine falls down a bit.
Third place, Bradley. Okay.
Yeah, real good Bradley team here. I know who one is. Who's two?
Number two, we've got Liberty.
Okay, yeah, Liberty.
Liberty coming. Liberty could have been number one. I think I had them one. You might have had the other team number one. It was real
Yeah.
close, but probably no surprise here. Drum roll, please. It's the Princeton Tigers.
Yeah. And Princeton off to just an incredible start.
On that note, let's pull this down here and go to both of you for any other final thoughts. Salika?
Yeah, I would probably say at this point, if James Madison ends up back and under the radar, it's going to be because they probably have some questionable losses at this point. So if you're looking at them possibly getting above the bubble, they're going to be on pace to do that, at least as far as the rate that they're currently winning games.
I suspect we will be talking about James Madison on the show in a few weeks here. The way they've been barely winning those games, I don't think they're going to stay up there.
Yeah. And
although they blew out Fresno State yesterday, so you can't say that completely. Griggs, you want to finish the show off here?
well, it is Thanksgiving Day morning, and I just want to make sure everybody keeps things in perspective and is safe and healthy. And just remember what's really important about Thanksgiving, and what's really important is all of the MTE games and drinking a lot of wild turkey.
Oh, I thought you were going to say the David Griggs float at the Macy's Thanksgiving Day parade.
I've given up on the David Griggs float with the Macy's. They've now I went to New York and they locked me in a box.
Yeah. If you want to check out all those tournament games that are going on today, tomorrow, over the weekend, check out that in-season tournament tab up top there. But on that note, on behalf of John Slika, David Griggs, Rocco Miller never made it onto the show today, but we'll give a shout out to him as well.
He was all excited too. He's like, "Yeah, I can make it. I'm always."
He was at the SoCal Challenge last night. I expect he's still sound asleep, but
I think he slept in the arena.
I'm Chad Sherwood. Thanks for joining us. Have a wonderful, happy, healthy, safe Thanksgiving, everybody. And we will talk to you again real soon next week, back to our normal schedule.